Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. Joined now by Mike Gill from 97.3 ESPN down the shore. Make sure you guys follow Mike on all the platforms at Mike Gill Show, and go check out his YouTube channel at Mike Gill Show as well. Mike, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Wednesday morning?
Good morning, boys. I'm doing all right. Are we still friends?
Yeah. What is our relationship, Mike? I don't know. We used to spend more time together. So, yeah, I'm of the belief that I don't think that's a big deal. I really don't. I think the big deal is that the passing offense stinks, and there's no reason the passing offense should stink. And I'm not talking about number one in the NFL. The Eagles' passing game does not need to be great. It's just got to be average, even below average. What it can't be is stinks.
Yeah, and it stinks right now. And, this almost feels like last year, not where the bottom fell out of the season, but where we just kind of kept accepting that, hey, they're finding ways to win, and that's what good teams do. And, and then all of a sudden it stopped. They just couldn't figure it out anymore. And it's like, well, they're running the ball and it doesn't matter. And that's who they are. That's their identity until you need to be able to do something else. And maybe they can't. You find out about yourself as the seasons go on. And this Saquon Barkley having if Saquon Barkley's out on pace to break Eric Dickerson's record, are we looking more and more at the passing situation a couple of weeks ago? You have something that has overshadowed the ineptitude of the passing game. And look, I joked on my show, this offense should be Tecmo Bowl. I need 4 plays with this group of guys. This isn't hard, guys. This should not be this difficult with the talent you have. You know how many teams in this league would die to have the talent there? Could you imagine if this group of guys, the receivers, running back, offensive line, were on the field with Joe Burrow the other night? It would be 50 points a game. So they certainly have a problem, and I don't know that it's fixable with the personnel they have, and that sounds wild to say.
Where's the problem for you, Mike Gill?
It's got to be, look, the quarterback is the problem, and that doesn't mean he could be a good player, but he's the weak link. He is outshined by everybody else in the room. He's the lesser of everybody. He's not more important than Barkley. He's not more important than Brown or better than Brown. He's not better than Smith. The offensive line is a better unit than he's the guy. He has to play better. There's plays out there not being made. And look, there's their elementary plays. It's not like they're asking him to do a whole, this play is really difficult. No, there's a guy running a 5-yard slant right in front of your face. He's got pink shoes on. If you can't see him, we have a problem. So I feel
why do you think so many people are afraid to say what you just said? I said it on your show yesterday. It's the quarterback.
That's a good question. I think people are ripping the quarterback, though. At least on my show, he's getting a lot of heat, and he has been. And I feel like there's been a bunch. I feel like because he has accomplished this before. We have seen him. So anytime somebody does something and we've seen it, we kind of revert back to, well, I've seen him do it, so he can do it.
Right.
I think Dan Orlovsky brought up an interesting question yesterday, which was, is he playing bad or is he bad? Which one is
question?
It? Right? Question. Is he playing bad or is he bad? I feel like it's somewhere in the middle where I don't think he's bad. We've seen him be really good. And I go back to, look, that Super Bowl, when you play like that on the biggest stage, you can't tell me the moment's too big for him playing on Sunday at 1:00 against Carolina. That the moment's too big. No, he played against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl and went toe to toe with the guy, and virtually
that was arguably the best game of his career.
Right. So the moment's not too big. We know that he can make these plays. The question is, why on a random Sunday against Carolina was it so bad? And look, the numbers at the end of the day, his quarterback rating was over 100. He had a completion percentage, 14 of 18. I mean, he basically, every time he went back to throw, he found somebody. He throws 2 touchdowns. He runs for another one. He makes a big play here. So it's not, I don't think he's bad, but I think he can be significantly better.
Yeah, and when I said, you have these extremes with Jalen Hurts, we have one on this show who act like he's never played good football versus the ones who want to protect him at all costs. I think, it's a microcosm almost of society. But right now he's not playing good football. And that has to be identified to fix, I would think. And I assume everyone behind the scenes kind of knows that. Certainly everyone, far more than A.J. Brown, brought up after the game that the passing game isn't where it needs to be. And as you mentioned, you eliminate the running back, you eliminate the receivers, you eliminate the offensive line. Well, what's left? So to me, it's pretty obvious. But the more difficult part is fixing it. Do you think, and this is difficult, they haven't lost a game since the bye week. But do you think they did the quarterback a disservice by scaling back the offense so dramatically? Because to me, he seems like a guy trying to not commit turnovers at all costs.
Yes and no. I mean, if they coach him up so much to be, to where he's afraid, I saw a bite this morning from Matthew Stafford, who basically, he didn't throw any interceptions. He hasn't thrown an interception in like 3 games. And, he was basically saying, like, you've got to be decisive and you've got to, not be afraid to turn the ball over. But by not being afraid to turn the ball over means it doesn't mean you can't do anything else. And, when I say Tecmo Bowl and people are like, look, they could run the same play all day long and not get stopped. You have A.J. Brown do a slant. You've got Smith do a post, and you've got a guy running the seam. Those guys are going to get open. Now, eventually the other team might start taking them away, but until they figure it out, you've got 2 of the best receivers on the same team in the league. Make them figure it out. Make them stop you. You don't have to overcomplicate what the offense is. So I think they get to a point where, have they coached him to be fearful of turning the ball over so much? I don't know. Somebody said to me, can he not see over the line? Is that a problem? He's got a guy 6'7" in the middle of the line. He's got Mailata's a pretty big dude on the outside. Can he not see that slant coming in front of him? I mean, because these guys are, I mean, it's amazing if he can't see that those guys are open. And these are the most basic, simple of throws. You would think the coach would say, I tell the story often where Barrett Brooks would say John Gruden was the coordinator, and John Gruden would tell the quarterback, 1, 2, 3, throw it to him. He's going to be open, and if he's not open, it's my fault. And that was Bobby Hoying. And Bobby Hoying looked like he was the savior at quarterback for this team. And then John Gruden left, and Dana Bible came, and he didn't tell him where to throw the ball. And guess what? Bobby Hoying couldn't play. So I don't know if all these different coordinators have told him so many different things that he's just completely confused and lost at what he's supposed to do and what he's not supposed to do. But if you're Kellen Moore, 1, 2, 3, the guy's right there. I promise you he's going to be open every time. This seems like it's a pretty simple way to get him back on track.
Mike, do you make anything of the drama element of what happened this week with the commentary? Like, John's more of the belief it's not really there's nothing they need to work out in the locker room. This is fix the passing game and everything else fixes itself.
Yeah.
I think there could be something going on in there that might be stemmed from the passing game, but it might, not everybody's on the same page. What did you make of the comments from AJ, Brandon Graham, and that stuff?
Well, I think the AJ stuff was pretty normal. Like, what's wrong? Passing. I think he got asked a question. He answered it. He wanted to kind of move on from it as fast as he could. I think by the time we got to Wednesday or Thursday, if that was everything, it's a normal thing that happens in there. We'd be speculating, do they not get it? And then they play the game, and it's like, okay, Brandon Graham just took a blowtorch to the thing, and
he opened the Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Well, and it's because it's Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham, I always say he's a terrible guy to have on as a talk show host because everything is too positive. Everything is, we're blessed to get a chance to play. We're going to give it our all. Everything's great. He never has a negative thing to say. So when Brandon Graham shows concern about what he heard, that's when I said, whoa, Brandon Graham is the nicest guy in the world. He doesn't give you anything except for positivity. So he absolutely blew this thing up. And then the disaster that ensued afterwards, texting every media member to try to fix it, then calling the radio station again the next day. Get out from it. Just back off and say, I'm getting out of this thing. So I think the Brandon Graham element really added to this whole mess. Because then, you've got T.O. getting involved. I mean, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, T.O. Now,
Still going after 20 years, that feud.
Yeah. T.O. actually did say, listen, I didn't like Donovan at all. And yet he threw me the ball. Like, he's not an idiot. We don't have to like each other. My biggest game ever was in the Super Bowl. We weren't talking at all. And he throws me the ball. He's not dumb enough. I hope Jalen Hurts isn't dumb enough to think that this little possible rift is a reason not to throw him the ball. Because we have heard stories the opposite, where Randall Cunningham wouldn't throw Keith Byers the ball to get his record because he wouldn't stop playing video games, like ridiculous stuff like that. So every individual person's different. These rifts happen all the time. And quite frankly, I don't think that these guys don't like each other or there's something going on there. I think after the game, because if you watch that video, he's asked the question, he says passing, and then he's almost got a smirk on his face. Like, he almost can't contain himself. He's like, oh, crap. I know that he's going to bust my stones now. So I don't think that the inner locker room stuff, that happens all the time, every team all season long. It just doesn't get out, and that's where the Brandon Graham element comes in. LaShawn McCoy talked about this on his show, and he also said, look, Brandon, I love you, man, but you didn't need to be a part of this thing. That's added to, I think, this whole thing.
Yeah. And it was so, And Brandon made a mistake. He knows it, obviously, as you pointed out. And if he didn't say what he said, it wouldn't even be an issue. I'm with you. For the most
I think
part.
if Brandon didn't say what he said, probably by now it may have even been, because Kellen Moore didn't give much yesterday. I know you guys tried.
Never
And
does.
He doesn't give much, and he's very calculated and prepared.
That dude is politician trained, isn't he? Holy mackerel.
Yeah, he's really good at giving you nothing. So I think with him giving you nothing, now what's Nick talking today?
Yeah, Nick's talking today, but he already gave his hand on WIP because he had to go on to talk.
He did, but I'm sure he'll get asked about it. The problem with these, now, is today a Zoom or in person?
In person.
Okay, because the Monday afterwards is useless because you guys are on Zoom, so you can't get anything there. He's sitting on a Zoom screen, so you can't really get the real back and forth and like tense feeling of having to answer these questions.
All the middle of the week stuff, though, Mike. It's all PR trained for the Eagles in the middle of the week. That's why after the game, I love after the game because you get people in their natural emotional state and you can talk to them about it. And typically you get some answers that give you something. And then they come out, during the week and they're all trained by the media. Oh, you're going to get this, you're going to get this, you're going to get this. And this is what
that's why the Monday one on the Zoom, it has become, because it's like, okay, now he has a chip, but if they're in the room, you can at least try to have some back and forth. And so, I've never been on one of those Zooms, but I've been on Zooms. I've been on this call here. It's sometimes hard to kind of, figure out when can you hear me if we're kind of going at the same time? That's hard. So the Monday ones make it difficult to try. Today being in person, he'll probably get some follow-ups. He was a little terse on the, I guess it was a Jeff McClain question, although he's generally terse with Jeff McClain, it seems like. But he tried to ask something where Sirianni just kind of gave him a one-word quickie. McClain followed up with something, and he just wasn't having it. So I'm sure he'll get a little round of it again today. And then this would probably be the end of it because he'd probably shoot it down. He'd be well-trained by now, and then the week would go on. But the Graham stuff has given it life up to this point.
Well, I think real
Yeah.
quick, I think the AJ comment, right? It's open for interpretation where it's like, is it a small problem? Is he talking
Sure.
about Jalen Hurts? And then BG comes and you have your wildest fears about what AJ said with the relationship with the quarterback. Is he talking about Jalen? And BG just poured gasoline on that fire and said, anything you were thinking about that comment that was negative, yep, I just confirmed that it's true inside the locker room. And I think that's where BG probably.
What do you guys make of Aaron Rodgers basically saying he thinks that Brown did it on purpose to light a fire under Hurts to get
I saw that.
I did see that. I would almost want to give AJ credit, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think he's playing 3D chess. I think like what's amazing to me is that so many people in that locker room said the same thing, but they said it in a more contextual fashion. Basically, the passing game's got to get better. Everybody from Jordan Mailata to Lane Johnson to Devontae Smith to Jalen Hurts to Nick Sirianni. Everybody said the same thing, but because of what Brandon said, AJ became the focus, and it's about personal relationships other than the actual problem, which is how bad the passing game has been. In some ways, and that's what I said to Zander at the start of the show, Mike, I think this will force them to address the issue. The NFL's weird. I tell this story all the time. JAKIB Sports is the one who told me. You don't teach much during the regular season. It's all about, and you've heard Nick Sirianni say it all the time, it's all about the next opponent. Everything this week is Pittsburgh, 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 Pittsburgh. Certainly amongst the players. Coaches have to have a little bit of a wider view, but certainly amongst the players. The off season that bleeds into training camp a little bit is for teaching. Then you're in evaluation the rest of training camp, and then you're into game prep. There's not a lot of teaching going on in the regular season. So this is what it is. This is the passing offense. And if it is, how freaking disappointed are you in the politician Kellen Moore?
Am I disappointed in Moore or am I disappointed in his student? I mean, I feel like Moore is getting guys open. Now, you would say, well, it's up to him to get it out of Hurts.
To me, the biggest part is teach.
Yeah.
Not scheme.
Sometimes you can teach, and if the kid doesn't want to be taught, or is incapable. I don't think he's incapable, but I'll tell you, I joked that Tua should be the MVP of the league. They're the worst team you ever saw in your life when he doesn't play. And when he plays, they're like, they probably made the playoffs. But I'm thinking the other day, I said, man, if you had a kid just like Tua, not the best player in the world, not the worst, just somewhere kind of in the middle, they're going up and down the field. He makes every throw. I mean, he just bang right there, 1, 2, 3, beep, right there. He throws it to the spot he needs to throw it to every single time. Almost every quarterback in the league now you're watching with the same. Bryce Young, I mean, he caught the snap, 1, 2, 3, he threw it. He didn't think. He was told that's where to throw the ball. Is Jalen defiant? I mean, we've all heard about how coachable he is. He's a coach's kid. And now it seems like it's almost like his whole life has been to earn this contract and get the respect he deserves. And he finally got it. And now he says, I got it. Screw all you guys. I'm doing what I want. It's a bizarre situation because he can do it. We've seen him do it. The offense has guys open. I'm watching Jason Avant doing a great breakdown. He said he only picked like 4 plays. He said I could get 14 plays of guys wide open on the field, and he just won't throw the ball. And it's perplexing because, I have an 85-inch screen, and you can see the whole damn field. And there's 3 guys open on every play, and he just held the ball all day. Is this a 1-week thing? I think he's done it in games past, not perpetual for full games. This seemed to be the whole day, and yet he was 14 of 18. That's pretty wild.
Aren't they kind of taken away too? Aren't they kind of regressing what they're asking him to do in the passing game week by week? I mean, the first 4 weeks of the year they were passing most, and they've taken it back. Now we're almost back to the RPO, and it's like I don't hate it because Jalen was successful in it, but is that Kellen Moore's fault? I have a hard time believing that's Kellen
I
Moore's
hate
fault.
it, but that's me.
Yeah,
That's
I
fine,
mean,
too,
but
though.
again,
Yeah,
it's like Kellen he's scheming guys open. They're open.
That's what I mean. That's why I have a hard. I mean, listen, I'm not happy with what Kellen Moore's been in the passing game, but I have a hard time sitting here and saying it's all on him.
No, I look. If John, if you're saying, look, it's up to him to get Jalen to make these reads and make these throws, okay, but he's getting guys open for Jalen. They're there for him. Now, I guess the next part is, hey, Jalen, I got you 3 guys open. Pick one. Just throw it. And if it's my fault. Like, I guess you got to get to the point where you've turned the ball over. You heard about it so much. And now you have to convince him that if he does make the mistake, that it's not his fault. It's my fault.
Well, I think people get caught up in scheme, and I'm with you. I mean, there's clips all over the place. Acho did a great clip where he showed about 6 plays where.
Yep. Well, you said Acho. Avant said he had 4. He could go to 4. He had 10 more. I saw the Acho stuff as well. A lot of people had things, and you're like, holy mackerel, this was egregious.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm going to bring up Kevin O'Connell for this reason. Greg Olson was the one who said this week, he's the guy now. He's the guy in the NFL for the quarterback whisperer. Daniel Jones went there to resuscitate his career on the practice squad. He's turning Sam Darnold into a freaking all-pro. It's not about the scheme. Now, they have tremendous talent there with Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson. So they have similar talent, skill position talent to the Eagles. So they have top-tier talent as well. But my God, you watch Sam Darnold play. Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold.
Yeah, which is funny. So Sam Darnold's a free agent. They haven't signed him yet. Does another team say, we'll take him because he's so good, or we're not interested because we don't have Kevin O'Connell? So it goes to the question, what's more important, the talent of the player or the guy who's trying to get the talent out of the player?
I always say player first.
Because if you're sending Sam Darnold to the Raiders or you're sending Sam Darnold to Cleveland, Cleveland might be a spot for him with Stefanski's, I guess. Although
I'm not talking about the player. I'm just talking about the scheme. Because he schemes people open, no doubt about it. But my point is, he's teaching these guys. He's teaching these guys where to get the football and protect. It might even go back to Josh Dobbs, where he's winning with Josh Dobbs in a week.
Yeah,
I think they're going to keep Sam Darnold. They got to extend. I think they're going to extend him.
I don't think they are, but that's a different conversation. But my point
is, they don't need to extend Sam Darnold because they feel that O'Connell can get the same from a guy like McCarthy.
Yeah, and they want to go, which, by the way, they're probably stupid because if you find somebody, if you luck into somebody,
you don't roll the dice to say, you drafted a guy in the first.
Well, we've gone down to a tangent. You're basically saying, well, I can make J.J. McCarthy into Sam Darnold. You already got Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Right. Well, you drafted the guy in the first round. You can't waste it now.
And it's cheaper. That's why, because Sam's going to make a lot of money this offseason. But that's the big thing. It's
this all goes down the rabbit hole of, has Jalen just had so many voices in his head? And keep in mind, Kellen wasn't here before. So he's new to this whole situation. And he might be saying, I said this yesterday on my show, this guy worked with Justin Herbert last year. He can call any
job. He regressed, by the way.
Still, you can call any play you want with Justin Herbert because you know he can do it. So he's saying, I worked with Justin Herbert last year. This play worked every time. I can't call that play anymore. Why? Well, because this guy can't do it. So he's worked with Dak Prescott. I know everybody in this chat is probably going to say Dak sucks. Well, Kellen Moore's probably thinking, I can run this play with Dak Prescott.
Dak Prescott's the reason Kellen Moore keeps getting jobs.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and keep in mind, we think Dak Prescott isn't whatever great because he hasn't won the big playoff games. But when he had Kellen Moore running that offense, they were 12 and they were 13
number
and 3.
one offense in the
12
NFL
and 4,
twice.
right. So
Twice.
he's saying, I ran this offense with Dak Prescott, no problems. Now I'm running this offense with a guy that people think is better than Dak Prescott, and we're having issues. These plays, Dallas runs, CeeDee Lamb catches the ball, easy, slant, takes off. I know this is more run-oriented, but is it more run-oriented? And this is where, are they so run-oriented because Saquon Barkley's having a historic season or because they have to be?
Mike, let me ask you this. This has been a topic all year long as we've watched this team and the way they've developed. We just talked about how they started the season differently than what they started doing after the bye week. And we've wondered here on the show, we've talked to you about it many times. Can they win with their setup, right? Running the ball, great defense, not being prolific. Does this change your opinion on that after what you saw versus the Panthers?
No. Can they win? Yes, but they have to be almost flawless. I mean, they have a good enough defense to keep them in the game most of the time. But I say before, their defense is going to have to win them a game in the playoffs. You can't win with offense 4 weeks in a row. So their defense is going to have to be good enough to win them a game. They'll probably be able to run and win a close playoff game. You're playing that number 7 seed, and it might be a battle. It might be the Commanders. Right now, it could be the Rams, who are, right. All those NFC West teams are in for that wild card spot outside of Seattle. They're all like a game behind Washington or 2 games behind Washington. So every team that's at 7 is a team that can beat you, but you can probably just, run the ball, play defense, make it like a 20-17 type of game, and then move on. One of the 4 games, you're going to have to be able to do something other than just turn around and hand the ball off all game long. So you could probably advance to a Super Bowl or get to an NFC championship game, but to win the ultimate prize, we've seen it many times where the team that gets to the Super Bowl, they throw, and then they get to the Super Bowl and they have to run, and they win the game in a different manner, or vice versa. So you have to be able to at least be able to do it once in a while. And right now, whenever the Eagles, we've always said, is there the game where they're down 2 scores and they have to throw themselves back? Baltimore, they were down 9-0. They kind of got back in that game, but it was early enough where they didn't have to abandon the run. If they're down 14-0, are they going to keep running in the first, second quarter, all that stuff? So, yeah, they can do it, but your margin of error is so small in that realm.
At Mike Gill Show, make sure you follow Mike on the X platform. Subscribe to his YouTube channel as well at Mike Gill Show there. 97.3, the Sports Bash locally in South Jersey. Listen to him every day, 2 to 6. Boy, we didn't talk about anything other than you got some defense in there. I'm proud of you. We didn't talk about anything about the quarterback. So I'm going to talk to you about the other big problem. And this is bigger. I'll end it there. Jake Elliott. 0 for 5 from 50 yards, 15 of 17 from 21 to 23. This guy's going off the rails, Mike. And this is my problem with that. The Eagles played differently. They went away from their DNA to protect Jake Elliott and lost their aggression and punted. And by the way, Braden Mann executed a Bonte, perfect execution on the punt. And they were still a Xavier Leggett drop away from being behind with 45 seconds left.
Yeah.
Is that sustainable? Or do you have to start thinking about, look, if this guy keeps struggling, you've seen all these injured kickers. Spencer Schrader, when he came in for Harrison Butker, he did a good job. Parker Romo came in. He did a good job. Do you have to start thinking about making a change?
I think it's a good question that they're not going to make a change. I mean, Tucker's having problems. They're not making a change. You just got to kind of ride it. But if it's affecting your decision-making, you're thinking, do you not want to make the harder decision to let the guy go? or do you want the decisions to now affect what you have to do game day? And I think you're seeing that where they would kick a 53-yard field goal all the time, every
They
time.
wouldn't even think about it. Nick was trying to bend over backward. He would a normal JAKIB. He trots him on the field. You send Carolina back to Charlotte. That's it. Game over.
Doesn't alternative improve that confidence though? That's the question.
It's weird. Did they change the footballs or something? Because this is an epidemic all over. I mean, guys are missing extra points. Guys are just we were laughing early in the year. It felt like, man, these kickers are just getting better and better. They're kicking 58-yarders and 60-yarders like it's no problem. Now these guys are missing extra points, missing 50-yard. Now 50-yarders were like we took such for granted that making a 50-yarder was like no problem. Well, here you got one of the best kickers in the league. He can't make one. Tucker's one of the best kickers of all time. He can't make one. And I think once that's such a between the ears position that if you miss 1, 2, 3, now you're constantly thinking about it. So, yeah, I definitely think that whole game, I heard somebody, criticizing Sirianni with the way that, he ended up not taking the field goal and how he handled that whole moment. But he handled that moment knowing that he couldn't trust his kicker. And if that's a problem in a playoff game, if you can't trust the kicker to make that kick in a playoff game, that's another reason why you're in big trouble.
We'll see how it all plays out. Mike Gill, thanks for joining the show today, man. Excellent as always. Make sure you guys follow Mike at Mike Gill Show and go check out his YouTube channel. Just type in Mike Gill Show and he'll come up 2 to 6 Monday through Friday. Mike, thanks for joining, man. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, bud.
Appreciate Mike Gill joining us here on Birds 365. Great stuff from Mike, as always. Interesting discussion, though, Johnny Mac. I know we got stuck on the one topic, but it is the topic right now on this football team. A lot of questions in the air for an 11-2 team, and we will see how they bounce back. We got a couple super chats we'll get to before we get out of here. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Hit that like button. Let's get to James Carver. He drops him a $20. James, big thanks, bro. James says, that's what Shady said after calling AJ and said the passing comment has grown into a personal problem and discussion when it was only about passing to all. And AJ was upset when the plays were designed for him and AJ was open. Same for Smitty. And there was a clip floating around, John. I'm not sure if you saw the clip of AJ and Smitty on the bench. And they were talking after they came off the field, and Jalen was kind of sitting on the other side of the bench. And it almost, you don't know exactly what they said, but it almost looked like AJ was like, hey, I was open. Were you open? Yeah, I was open. And neither of them got the ball. I'm just speculating. It was an interesting thing that went. But your response to what James Carter
I didn't see the clip, but I mean, that's I people keep using the term upset. I use the term frustrated because I think they were both frustrated. And there was a right to be frustrated because they were open, and we saw that with the clips and the all 22 cut-ups, and everybody showing it from Orlovsky to Odd Show to Jason Abant, everybody else who played the game and said, look, this is open in the NFL. Bang. If the ball comes out on time. And I've been talking about it since week 1 in Green Bay with the turnovers. All those turnovers early were late throws, basically. Ball's not coming out on time. It's been a problem all season. Why? I wish I could tell you. I mean, Mike went to, guys are open, so that should take some of the mantle off Kellen Moore. I agree with that from a scheme perspective. I'm speaking
so much on his plate, John, pre-snap. Remember that was a big story early in the year.
Maybe that's added to it. There's so many different avenues you can go through. Maybe, I always bring up Dante Culpepper back in the day because he had just a phenomenal season. Offensive Player of the Year season, would have been an MVP, but the team wasn't good enough. More of a 10-win type team. I forget 9-10-win type team. So had to settle for the Offensive Player of the Year award. What historic season at the time from a production standpoint. both passing and running. You know, he was one of the first real dual threat dominant quarterbacks before his knee injury. And I remember him coming back the next year. It's like one of those where you were talking to me on the post game show, and you said, because I was talking to Jordan when AJ was talking, and you told me his answer and passing, and I said, oof. Well, that's the same thing I had with Dante back in the day. He said, the game has slowed down for me. And I said, oof, here it comes. And he did not have a good season. He got hurt very early in the next season, but the first 4 games or so before he got hurt, he was not playing well, remotely coming off the great season. I'm not saying that's happened to Jalen Hurts, but the minute you think you have this thing solved, they will remind you of where you are. And by they, I mean NFL defenses. And if you're not constantly growing and constantly evolving and constantly getting better and constantly standing still, you're going to regress. You're not going to stand still. And I think that's what's happening with Jalen Hurts. He's regressing. Why? You know, I focus when it comes to coaching. I focus more on the teaching than I do with the scheme, because anybody can go get Ben Johnson tape and copy plays. Can you teach the players to execute those plays? That to me is the more important part of coaching. Always has been. And Vic will say that defensively. You know, you got to get the guys prepared.
Yeah,
look,
isn't there only so much you can do in that though? Like,
well, look at what
Vic
Fangio,
teaching the progression, where to go, but he can't pull the trigger for him.
Well, Vic Fangio is a perfect example in this town because they've been playing the defense for 4 years now. Look at the difference when he's teaching it versus some other people teaching it. No, you can't force people to do it, but good teachers find ways to reach people.
Good stuff there. James Carver, thanks for the super chat, brother. I appreciate that. Lauren Crampsey checks in. Lauren, thank you so much for the support. Morning, folks. They'll fix it. And Philly media is the GOAT. No cap. Look at that. She likes Philly media. Is that a real comment? Is that?
I don't think that's a real comment. I'm just going. Yeah, I gotta believe they'll fix it.
Johnny Mack is the GOAT. I'll correct it.
I don't know.
How about that?
You never know if people are being sarcastic without the.
No, I think Lauren's genuine.
Most people don't like the Philly media. I don't like that they lump us all into one.
I know, it's a pain in the balls.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I have different opinions than other people. So I don't know why, you know, I got no problem if you want to take a shot at me for my own opinion. I got a problem getting lumped in with other people who say things that I may not agree with. And for whatever reason, it's not just Philadelphia. I mean, that happens all over. And that happens in much bigger stories and themes and politics and society as a whole than sports, which at the end of the day doesn't matter. But yeah, I'm amazed how many people can't digest that the media is not one group.
Good stuff, Lauren. Thank you for the support, Lauren. We appreciate that. She followed up too here and said, good point, J-Mac. Yeah, I think she's being genuine. Good point, J-Mac. Shanahan has had every mid quarterback in the league in the Super Bowl. It's true. Brian Garner.
Well, and by the way, Kyle Shanahan, one of the reasons I was high on Sam Darnold this year is because he spent a year with Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
Before
what's going to happen with Kyle this year? You think they're going to blow it up?
You never know, but I don't think so. I think they know what kind of coach he is. But I would have a discussion with Kyle Shanahan and say, dude, can you scale back on you know, the game planning, the play calling a little bit and manage the game a little bit better as the head coach? You know, be a head coach is what I'm saying. Don't be a supercharged offensive coordinator.
Right. Lauren did follow. Oh my God, it's a real comment. Come on now, Mac. Appreciate that, Lauren. Good stuff there. Brian
I'm not used to it. I appreciate it. I'm not used to it.
Brian Garner checks in. He says the QB deserves criticism. The QB is a winner and he's missing reads. Both things are true. They need to find a way to fix it, period. Well stated, Brian. I
Yeah,
agree.
that is well stated. I might steal that, Brian. That
There
is
you go.
well stated.
If Johnny Mac's stealing something from you, you know you had a good comment. Good comment there, Brian. James Carver said, we got audio. Love y'all. Appreciate that. James, this is a good take here on the kicker stuff because I think the kicker conversation is an interesting one right now. James Carver, appreciate you, James. He says, J-Mac, could it be good for Jake and the Eagles if Lions do have the number 1 seed because he's likely to kick better in the dome and Jake likely to be needed the most versus the Lions? Interesting take there.
I mean, I think everybody kicks better in the dome, so I think that's better for everybody. Detroit's kickers having a great freaking year.
Yeah, who they have? Bates? Is that their kicker?
Jake Bates, who's won a couple games for them. I think he's 20 of 21 or something. He's missed one field goal, somewhere in that range. So he's having a great game. So I'm not sure it's going to be an advantage, but every kicker is better in the dome, every single one of them. So I would agree with that. Certainly than here late and projected to be in January. That would be, you got to cross your fingers to even get a mediocre kicking day in Philadelphia in January.
Where are you on Jake Elliott? Because I asked you after the game on the post-game show, and it's a little heat of the moment, and I said, John, they're not going to think about replacing him, and you kind of quickly shot it down, and I agreed. I'm like, I don't think they're actually going to, but it does seem like it's gotten to this point. And then you asked Mike Gill that, and I'm like, has your thought process?
No, my thought process hasn't changed from the fact that they're not going to replace him. But I think, it's a worthy question to ask of others.
Right, because you're changing what you're doing in game because of it.
Yeah, and I wrote about that at SI after the game. I mean, that to me is the bigger thing than the missed kicks, is that they changed their philosophy because of those struggles in the final moments. And it worked out, but it only worked out because Xavier Leggett dropped the football. That's the only reason it worked out. Now, typically, as I said, Nick was bending over backwards Monday saying, oh, the wind was worse than you thought and blah, blah, this and that. And I had to take that. That's bullshit. He lost confidence in the kicker. Again, does anybody believe from 21 to 23, when this guy went 15 of 17 from 50 plus, was the best kicker in the league from long range, he trots him out on the field, extends it to 9 points, game over. That's what he doesn't even think about it. And here, they're trying to draw him off sides first. When they didn't draw him, they take the delay to make it better for Braden. They're changing their whole philosophy because of the struggles of the kicker. Right. That's not a good thing.
Add into the fact that if he made the kick, it would have effectively ended the game. I mean, you go away from that decision.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The game's over if he makes the kick, and that's a decision he wouldn't even have thought over if Jake Elliott was kicking like Jake Elliott. And now he's doing all these different things just to make up for the fact that he has no confidence in the kicker right now.
Josh Herman checks in, our latest jersey winner. Josh, the update is that you're getting your jersey soon. These Saquon jerseys, John, are all delayed as he breaks the record for Shady. So our guy in the UK got his like a week and a half ago. Now Josh is up next. I got the email a couple of days ago that it's all on its way. So I emailed him. And then we got two more. Got Terry Hayes is getting his jersey.
1 yard away from another one.
Shoot, what's the guy's name? Pile Driver, who won the Brandon Graham jersey. Josh Herman says, Big Z, I listen to you guys on my way from work. Way better than the mainstream outlets. Great stuff. Josh, we appreciate that, man. Thank you for tuning in every day. It means a lot to us. We appreciate that very much. Brian Pumper says, J-Mac, keep cooking their false prophets. These Jalenites need to touch grass.
Yeah, Brian's our resident Jalen hater. I don't go as far as Brian. Look, he's not playing well right now in the passing game. Now, he's still doing a bunch of other stuff. That's why I liked the other Brian's comment.
Garner, Brian Garner.
He's a winner. He does off schedule. Even in that game, I brought it up after the game. You had the 35-yard run on third down. You had a 15-yard run on third down. You had extending the play to get Devontae Smith for a big 27-yard gain. Even when he missed AJ for an easy touchdown, he was able to readjust and get Devontae Smith for a touchdown. He's still able to make plays. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. But the passing game's got to get better. I don't know why anybody can debate that fact. And I think fewer and fewer people are debating. People are leaving that island and understands, all right, this has to get better. There's still some, though, holding out. Acting like it's not a big deal. Well, can you beat the Detroit Lions throwing for 108 yards? I guess, but I'd love to see it.
No.
I'd love to see it.
You can't beat the Detroit Lions throwing for 108 yards. Stop. No way. They're the best offense in football. They're a top 3 passing offense and the number 2 running offense. If you were doing the bullshit ESPN predictive analytics, I'd say you're 95% losing the game at least. But there's always that 5%. But that's why we talk about margin of error all the time. You're trying to increase it, not getting it to 95%, which is, to win a game like that against Detroit, or not even Detroit, or Green Bay, or Minnesota, you'd have to get a defensive touchdown and maybe a punt return touch. Something crazy would have to happen. Yeah, or just an insane defensive performance where they don't give up many points.
Yeah, so, I don't know. And we haven't even talked about the defense. You kind of saw with Adam Thielen a little bit of what, Browns like that, St. Brown's like that.
Yes, he is.
Jefferson's like that, great route runners who can make some plays that maybe other teams are not going to make.
Yeah, they find the zones in the field better than others and at the right times. I mean, and you're right.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes. We got a couple more super chats we'll get to here, and then we got BLG coming up at 9:20. So looking forward to talking to Brandon Lee Gout and see what his take is on everything happening in Eagle Land right now. Here we go. Another one from Brian Pumper. I missed this one other. He says he can't read. This guy can't read, which is the famous quote from the Bucs playoff game. That's becoming a bigger thing again. Brian Pumper says, I'll tell you what happened to Jake. You give a damn kicker a captain's patch, expectations higher for a leader. I don't know, Brian, because you got to give a special teams guy a captain patch every year.
Yeah, he's been a captain. This is not the first time he's been a captain. He was a captain last year when he was a second-team All-Pro.
I'll tell you what, Mike brought up a good point. I mean, you got who were the 2 best kickers in the league last year? Probably Jake Elliott and Justin Tucker, right?
I think Aubrey was
Aubrey was up there. So there was a couple, but I mean, Elliott and
yeah, I mean, Tucker's the best kicker of all time, though. But I think
struggling this year. It is odd what's happened to the kickers.
Well, a lot of kickers are having. I just brought up Jake Bates. He's having a great year. A lot of kickers are having great years.
Yeah. There is a lot having bad years, though. I turn on a bunch of games and they're like, oh, there you go. Another.
Well, Michael Clay, we talked to Michael Clay. He said when the weather turns, it'll change. And he was right. But there's still overall, I would say it's been a good year for kickers. I mean, the number of 50-plus yard is unbelievable compared to what it used to be. So overall, the large sample size, I would say it's a up year for kickers. Pretty significantly up year, I would.
Well, let's hope Jake Elliott can get there as well. Jack Dwight checks in. Jack, appreciate it. I have an issue with Eagles media with softball questions at the pressers. It wasn't always like this. Been following since Jurgensen was the quarterback. Ooh, a shot at the media, John. What do you have to say about that?
Well, there we go. Media again. I would disagree. I think people misconstrue professionalism with, like we're not going to go there. And like I say, ask Nick why Jalen sucks or something.
Yeah, right.
Those are people that don't understand the job, the profession. There's got to be a level of decorum. So that part,
Can it though, like on a real note for from a reporter, can it be a hard line to walk when you're trying to get to the truth or get the answer to your question while also maintaining that professionalism, especially if the question might be tough
no,
to
it's not.
answer?
It's not hard to maintain your professionalism. It's hard to get information sometimes because, one of the things, I always try to do with Nick, because if you ask Nick about a specific player, you're going to get the bullshit. So I try to ask more thematic questions to try to get information. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes he goes off on a great soliloquy. He's kind of shut down a little bit this year. But I would say this to Jack. I mean, we got the reputation of being the toughest media in the country that hasn't wavered. And people hate us in the building because they think we're too tough. So I would lean on that more than we ask softballs, because I don't think Nick Sirianni thinks we ask softballs. I'll tell you that.
There's some in there. There's some in there that are softballs. No, Steve.
Well, there's some and always. I mean,
Yeah,
some,
there's always gonna be some. Yeah, I get it.
you're not going in there with the idea, oh, I'm going to get the head coach. I mean, your job is to gather information on what's going on with the team.
Right.
And to be honest, most of that happens outside of press conference, 90+% of it. The more important stuff. But yeah, I mean, you're trying to gather. You're not trying to play gotcha. You're trying to gather information. So yeah, I don't know, but most people think we're pretty tough, evidently. So I'll stand on that.
Nosty Beats checks in and says, if you think about it, Jalen's ability to run and throw off schedule has delayed/limited his development as an actual QB. Interesting theory there. I think it's maybe some merit to it. John, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, that's always that tightrope. It is. It's a difficult tightrope because, you can't be successful. You can't be consistent. And I think you see that with the Eagles offense. You can't be consistent with off schedule stuff. To be consistent, you have to run on schedule effectively. And the Eagles are very effective off schedule, and they're not very effective on schedule. And what you see is a lack of consistency. But then at the end of the game, you say, well, he made this 35-yard run. He broke the back of the game. I talk about it all the time. I use the term relentless because he's playing poorly on schedule. And then you're as a defense, you might even be puffing out your chest. And all of a sudden, instead of getting off the field, he's gouging you for 35 yards. He's a very unique player. But the on-schedule stuff is not good right now.
Got to take the good with the bad. I mean, I think you bring up a good point. He's a unique player, but at some point, what's more important? Is the on-schedule deficiencies more overweigh or over?
In a big spot, what do you need?
Right.
Do you need a 7-yard slant, or you need somebody pulling a horseshoe out of their hind quarters?
Yeah, sometimes it is the latter, and you need the the guy pulling the horseshoe out. Jalen's been proven to do that at times, but we'll see if we can get there with the on schedule being as bad as it is. Lauren Cramsey again. Lauren, thanks for your support today. We appreciate that, and I think you were also supporting yesterday. Yesterday was a little bit of a wash show. We were on a different platform, it was a nightmare. As the ex-head of media for a top global soccer team. Wow, look at that. There you go, Lauren. Trust me when I tell you the culture of the Philly media is as tough as it comes. The fastballs are in the nuance of the softballs. Hashtag media stand. So, Lauren, a big media girl. I like it, Lauren.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I said. Lauren's right about there's certain things you get to learn certain coaches. Like with Bick, we just ask him questions.
Right, because you're going to get the truth.
Yeah.
Nick, you gotta ask it a certain way to see if you can prod something out of them.
Yeah. So once you learn the people, you try to at least the ones who know what they're doing, try to go in different directions. Like you will never hear me any longer ask Nick Sirianni an injury question. It's a complete waste of time.
It's a waste of your time. Yep.
It's a complete waste of time. So I don't do it. It's, sometimes people feel they have to get him on the record about something. He's going to say the same thing every single time. It's not even worth it. Do it off platform. Do it off camera. It'll give you the same bullshit. So you have to learn the coaches, and as I said, Vic is so straightforward. We just lob questions at him, and he'll answer the question. Not a lot of coaches like that anymore. So with most, you have to get them talking and things of that nature. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes yesterday I tried to get Kellen. He didn't understand the question. I was trying to basically say, ask him about the offensive struggles, how quickly they go off script, things of that nature. But Kellen's a politician, so it's difficult at times. But I think overall, I don't know. I don't think as a group we're all throwing softballs all the time.
Good stuff. One more super chat, then we'll get to BLG. Appreciate everybody in the chat today. Hit that like button for us. James Carver says, granted, Pat was talking about Tucker on his show, and he was a punter, but he said when kickers fall off, it's fairly quick. Any concern that's begun for Jake? I think that's a fair concern. By the way, he's talking about the Pat McAfee show there. Great show.
Yeah, I'm concerned about Jake Elliott. And more than Jake struggling, I think his struggles have changed the Eagles a little bit, and I think you saw that at the end of the game, where again, previous years that wouldn't even have been a decision for Nick Sirianni, and here he is trying to draw him off sides and trying to jump through hoops, and then taking a delay game to pin him back, and yada yada yada. And from 21 to 23 was trotting him out there, kick the field goal, been aggressive, probably win the game and send the Panthers back to Charlotte. That's a concern for me.
All right. Good stuff. Appreciate everybody in the chat. We're going to get to BLG now. Coming up next here on Birds 365. Look at this comment, John. I love this one. Amber says, Zander, in the past, I've been hard on John. He's growing on me. John, I apologize. Good stuff there, Amber. We appreciate that. And big shout out to Philly Mike in the chat. What's up, Philly Mike? Appreciate it, man. Love your channel. I appreciate you guys watching. Hit that like button. We'll be back in 3 minutes with BLG coming up next.
Ignite your nights with free live entertainment daily, only at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia's Center Bar. 7 days a week, enjoy some of